Welcome back. I'm Jim LaPierre. This is Sober Now. Good to be with you today. Today's topic is should we fake it till we make it? Streaming live today on Facebook on a few streams, and one of them is, of course, Sober Now's Facebook page. If you haven't been over there yet, I'd really appreciate it if you could take just a moment, give it a like. You'll get notified about future live streams and other content we're creating. As always, would love to hear your questions, your comments, topics that you'd like to see covered. Just shoot me a message in the chat pane on any of the streams, and would love to hear what's going on for you today. What's going on in your recovery? What kind of challenges are you facing? Okay, gonna get into it in just one moment. There we go. Working out all the bugs with the technology. Okay, so fake it till you make it. It's not just a recovery adage, it's something that's been part of our vernacular for a very long time. And the idea is that if we can pretend that we're confident, that we have competence, that we're optimistic or hopeful, that somehow we'll come to embody those qualities. And that's the idea that the misguided notion that we can achieve those goals on our own. And obviously, that doesn't work for anybody. Like, trust me, we checked. No one has ever really achieved a better life on their own. All of us need support. I always say to folks, I think the best we can do alone is be sober. And being sober creates tons of possibilities. Harm reduction creates possibilities. But recovery fulfills those possibilities. And so if you're anything like me, then you need kindred spirits. You need mentors, guides, people who are further along in the process. And what's amazing to me is that I need people I haven't even met yet. I trust that my higher power is going to put them in my path to ensure that I get everything that I need, and quite often stuff that's better than what I think I want. But I'm a person who needs encouragement, reassurance, support, and more than anything, I need accountability for my own goals, for my own healing, for the things that I have yet to learn. And the more that I surround myself with like-minded people on similar journeys, the better that goes. When I think about fake it till you make it, there's another adage that comes to mind, which is if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. And all of us are very good at doing that. We're chameleons. We're very manipulative people. We have a skill set in pretending, and the truth is we never lose that. It's always available to us if we need it, but we can transform it into something that is geared towards positive change. Manipulation tends to have a negative connotation, but I think of it as I can use those abilities towards destructive or hurtful ends, or I can use that same skill set towards creating. And I'm big on creating because when I'm creating, I'm not destroying. My brain provides a soundtrack for just about everything that happens in my life. So when I started thinking about what I wanted to share with you today, immediately I heard Seether, a popular band that I really enjoy, and the song is actually entitled Fake It. It starts out with, I can fake with the best of anyone, I can fake with the best of them all. And the song goes on to actually espouse why pretending and faking it are not in our best interest. Just fake it if you're out of direction. Fake it if you don't belong here. Fake it if everything feels like infection. You should know that the lies won't hide your flaws. There's no sense in hiding all of yours. But the song makes reference to giving up on dreams, losing our sense of self and our self-worth, and losing direction. And of course, those are things that we vitally need. The real downside of being a chameleon is that it's a barrier to discovering our true selves. In the course of recovery, there's a million things that we need to learn, and arguably one of the most important is to discover our sense of who we truly are, not just who we are to others, not who we are in active addiction or when we're hustling, not who we are in extreme codependency. So what keeps us bogged down, I think, the most is pretending that we're okay. Um, it's amazing to me how we do that. Folks get bogged down in ideas or fears about being an imposition to others or burdening others. Or when we're uncomfortable with ourselves, we have a tendency to make it about others. So we'll say things like, they're already too busy, they already have too much on their plate. When the truth is, we're afraid to open up and express what our needs and feelings are. We're afraid to admit that we don't know how to do things. And for most of us, as soon as we became adults, we already were very versed in hiding our true feelings, our needs, and the ways in which we're struggling. So when we became adults, we just started bullshitting all the more, and whatever we didn't know, we just compensated for, we just pretended like we knew what we were doing. All of that is part of imposter syndrome, the feeling of being a fraud, the feeling that maybe we don't deserve the relationships we have, the careers that we have. Whatever it is, it's probably connected to guilt and shame, and it's connected to the emotional experience of being apart from. We all want to be a part of, and that's potentially I guess if we're going to say that there's a benefit to being a chameleon, that's it. We can blend in any group. We can just get an intuitive sense of how folks are and how they'd want us to be, and that's as close as we approximate being a part of. But of course, that is endlessly lonely and terribly draining. I'm going to check the feeds real quick. I'd love to have you write in and let me know what questions you have or what's going on with you today. We can talk about stuff on topic or off. It's totally fine. Okay, folks are quiet so far today. That's all right. Being conditioned as we were to earn conditional love and acceptance is a big part of what leaves us faking it. We have this fear, a number of fears actually around this. We expect to be rejected and abandoned. We expect that if we disappoint others, that they'll no longer care for us, that they would not forgive us. And it's such a huge theme to allow ourselves to be genuine. We're people who tend to think and feel at the extremes, and so I think we feel like we either have to be stoic at one extreme and just pretend that we're strong and holding it together, and at the other end, we can be a hot mess, we can be a complete disaster and feel like we're falling apart. But I don't know that there's much in between. So ideally, ideally we embrace transparency with people that we have an intuitive sense that we can trust. I don't ever suggest to anyone go out into the world with your heart on your sleeve and trust people. I will say, if you're, whether it's in a 12-step fellowship or some type of recovery program where folks are willing to share their experience, strength, and hope, then being fake with those folks is, first of all, something that they can see through, right? Nobody can spot another addict or alcoholic's bullshit like a recovering alcoholic or addict. We fake everything from sobriety to careers to you name it. And so the cost of that is continuously being full of stress, a ton of anxiety, especially social anxiety. We're folks who feel compelled to think and react and respond very quickly, and what we're really trying to do is tell people what they want to hear. Sometimes we're looking to be the center of attention, sometimes we're looking to be invisible, but none of these things allow us to be who we really are. And of course we do this in romantic partnerships as well. The ultimate in codependency is essentially I will be who you want me to be because then you will love me. But of course, this never works. It always breeds resentment because you don't love me for who I am, you love me for who I pretend to be. Um, our past taught us to conceal so many things, especially our resentments, especially our fears, our feelings, our true selves. And so to me, I've never really embraced the idea of faking it because to me, faking it is to live disingenuously. When I'm in situations where it doesn't feel like people are being real, it actually reminds me of my family of origin, where there's obviously an elephant in the room, but we're going to pretend that there's no elephant. We're going to pretend that the explosion that happened just a minute ago didn't even happen. Everything's totally fine. We pretend that we're not angry. We pretend so many things. And I prefer authenticity. It's a hang up of mine. I need for things to be really, really real. And it's one of the reasons that I gravitate towards people in recovery so much. Is it's kind of a warped idea that something should be really real. But 3 days grace comes to mind. I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all. I don't want to feel numb. I don't want to feel like an imposter. I don't want to be somebody that I'm not. But in order to genuinely be myself, I had to have a pretty good idea of who that was. And as long as I was a chameleon and faking it, I had no idea who that was. Many, many years later, thanks in large part to a lot of outside help, I started to discover who I was. I started to realize that so much of what had been taught to me about my worth and my potential and my whether or not I was lovable, I had been taught an awful lot of things that simply are not true. And so, making the choice to be who I most want to be, I who I most choose to be, who my higher power wants me to be, allows me to break free of a lot of the false beliefs that I carried. It allows me to choose I don't want to say my own destiny, but certainly it allows me to choose what it is that I most believe and value, how it is that I most want to be in this world, what kind of people belong in my life and what folks don't. And all of this leads to a far more fulfilling and satisfying life. One of the things that I commonly hear as a therapist is that folks have a goal of being happy, which I really never get behind. I'd rather be seeking fulfillment, satisfaction, joy. I'd rather be making investments in myself and others. I'd rather have rigorous honesty and accountability. I think part of the problem with faking it is that I can easily believe my own bullshit. I can rationalize and justify with the best of them. I can minimize how important my feelings are, how important my needs are, and ultimately how important I am. So I want to approach these things with humility, but I also want to approach myself and my life the same way that I do others. That's such a contrast for so many of us. The way that we speak to ourselves and our self-talk is a way that we would never speak to others. The way that we judge ourselves and all of the ways in which we relate to ourselves are fundamentally different than the way that we relate to everyone else. And so I think of it as using the golden rule in reverse. I want to be able to not just serve others, but to serve myself and allow myself to be served. I want to empower and build other people up, but I also need to allow that in my life as well. So being authentic can be terribly uncomfortable, and it involves a lot of things that we're not used to. Saying what you really mean instead of what they want to hear, allowing folks to have their own truth, their own opinion, and allowing them to share that with us. Being able to take things like compliments, praise, recognition, affirmation, validation, all of those are part of living a more authentic life. And being really open minded, being open to feedback, being open to new ideas. My experience is that as we continue to grow and heal, that again, new possibilities awaken, as my friends in 12-step programs say. And I don't want to miss any of those. I'm kind of a hedonist. If something's good, if it makes my life better, then I want to be open to all of those things. And this requires that I approach every situation in my life with at least some measure of vulnerability. Addictive thinking leaves us seeking shortcuts, leads us stuck in kind of a problem-solving paradigm as opposed to a relational paradigm. And these are all ways to avoid just opening up and expressing what we really need and feel. All of us want so very much to be understood, but we tend to fear opening up and showing others who we are. And so this too, we tend to think about in all or nothing terms. I've never said to someone, just go put your heart in somebody else's hands. I'll challenge the black and white thinking by saying, okay, how much vulnerability is there really in admitting that you don't know how to do a specific skill or a specific task? It's not an all or nothing proposition. And as long as we approach it as if it is, then we're going to stay stuck in our own minds and doing things our own way. And we're going to miss a lot of opportunities to connect with people who really do want to share with us what's worked for them. It's kind of like reinventing the wheel. It's unnecessary. It's not something that we have to do, but too often it's something that we choose to do. I think, the most common form of faking it that I see is acting confident when we're scared. And what I've learned is that fear, when I am not willing to expose it, cope with it, it will run me. It will limit what's possible in my life. It will limit my perspective, my thinking. It'll keep me stuck in the problem instead of seeking a solution. And so what I've learned about dealing with fear is that it really determines the lion's share of what's possible in my life. And the more that I'm willing to share my fears with people that are genuine, the fear naturally subsides. It loses power over me. I become more open to the idea of change and ensuring that I'm taking responsibility for what it is that needs to change and what it is that I need to do differently. The other issue with faking it is that we typically don't have an on and off switch for it. Maybe there's a small number of people in your life that you feel you really can be yourself with. There's folks that are more comfortable to share with than others. But if we're stuck in being a chameleon, we don't necessarily think, okay, I don't have to do that around this person, or whether it's one close friend or one close family member. It's something that we do subconsciously, and so it has to be something that we're more mindful of in order to stop doing the thing that is a barrier. Are there things that are worth faking? Potentially. I think maybe the most important distinction is having the right to keep things private, considering what it is that people really do have a right to know about you. If you're wanting to fake it through your workday because folks on your job site aren't supportive, that's a completely reasonable thing to do. Being genuine and authentic is something that we can really only embrace when it's safe to do so. If I work in a toxic workplace, if I'm around toxic people from my family of origin, then being completely genuine means letting people close to me who shouldn't be. It means showing them parts of myself that they really should not have access to. So I think we have to get past the ideas about if we're keeping something private, then for a lot of us that feels like lying, it feels like keeping secrets. So much of what keeps us stuck in faking it is shame and guilt, honestly, are the two biggest ones. And those two look very differently when we bring them out into the open. And just as fear loses power when we expose it, so too shame and guilt lose power. Um, for so many of us, the things that really are the biggest part of our shame and guilt are things that weren't even our fault. They were most often things that were done to us as opposed to things that we have done. So, being able to peel away those layers of past trauma, those unresolved grief and loss, all of those false beliefs, creates a lot more room for authenticity and a lot more room for self exploration. Rebecca, thanks for writing in. I'm glad that the topic resonates with you. Developing identity and really coming to know who we are is this huge ongoing process. And of course, if we're pursuing recovery, we're not stagnant people. So deciding or coming to terms with who you are is, of course, not a once and for all kind of event. Um, I've been writing about identity development for a lot of years. It's something that I've learned endless amounts about from people in 12-step fellowships because ideally the ultimate goal of recovery is transformation of self, transforming our lives into something that's so good that we wouldn't want to mess them up by using or drinking. Transformation is, in my experience, something that people typically only do when they feel that they must. When we feel like we can't stand the way our lives are going one more second, we're tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired, and so we start making investments most often out of desperation. But of course, this also lends itself to further change. So my friends who refer to themselves as quote-unquote grateful alcoholics, obviously no one's grateful to have developed substance use disorder, but when we start seeking transformation around addiction recovery, we become exposed and open to ideas about lots of other types of healing that certainly are connected to substance use disorder, but are things that most people don't pursue. And ultimately, of course, transformation is deeply spiritual. And of course, that doesn't mean that we gravitate towards religion necessarily or towards a particular idea about God, but it means that we become open to connection. And so we, in active addiction, obviously are people who are highly avoidant of ourselves and disconnected from most of the best things in life. And so recovery allows us to connect to people who have struggled similarly and are leading their best lives today. It allows us to connect to self and gradually to reconnect with loved ones and to form new connections. To the importance of developing friendships with folks on similar journeys just can't be overstated. And it always saddens me how many folks I meet who, when they get really, really honest, admit, I don't have friends. I'm afraid to make new connections. I have social anxiety. Whatever the barrier is, it's the loneliness that is so much of the void, so much of the emptiness that we seek to fill. A lot of us are relatively comfortable relating to people on a very superficial level. We have a lot of acquaintances. We can be the center of attention in a social gathering, but we can't maintain a best friend. We can't start a new friendship or move something that's an acquaintance to something that is far more a deep friendship. So all of these and more, I think, are possibilities that come from being more authentic and more genuine, holding compassion for selves, and progressively allowing others to serve us. The biggest barrier for me has been everything that I try to do alone and the areas in which I have avoided being vulnerable. And so the more that I allow myself to be just who I am and to allow my higher power to work in my life and in my path to guide me towards becoming a better version of myself, that's a lifelong pursuit. I'm going to be a work in progress every day of my life. And my hope is that you're making those investments in yourself. My hope also is that you'll connect with me. I love being of service to people in recovery or seeking recovery. Lots of ways to do that. The quickest and easiest one, jim@sobernow.com. Email me your questions, the challenges involved in your recovery. Email me with topics that you'd like to see covered. And then take a minute, head over to YouTube and check out sobernow.com. Our channel there has well over 100 videos on different aspects of recovery, from substance use disorder, from trauma, from mental illness, all of those things and more. Give that a like and you'll get notifications on future live streams and other content. And then by all means check out our website, sobernow.com. We've moved to a subscription service, so for less than $15 a month you get total access to both of our home study programs, one for recovery from substance use disorder and a second program for affected others, for folks like me who have loved ones in active addiction. So check out all of those resources. Feel free to follow or connect with me on Facebook. Any type of social media that works for you is an avenue that we want to be open to. Help us expand our reach. If you would, if you're watching this video long after the fact, give it a like, and feel free to drop me a comment about, again, any questions, any comments, always welcomed. So please take especially good care of yourself and ideally each other. I hope that today is a bit of an inspiration to be more open and transparent, be more authentic and more vulnerable, and I hope that you get to experience huge benefits of that in your recovery. Thanks. I'll look forward to joining you all next week, and have a great day.